TheStradman is one of the biggest automotive YouTubers in the world with almost 4 million subscribers. He owns a $2 million home, a Bugatti, and a collection of supercars. But it wasn't always like this. Just 10 years ago, he was homeless, living in his car on $5 a day, posting to YouTube for basically no viewers. It's a story of hardship, dedication, and success over a decade in the making. So let's go back to the beginning to see where it all started. Back in 2011, James graduated college with a degree in accounting and finance. But obviously, that's not what he wanted to do. He tried starting a business buying and selling cars, but it just wasn't making enough money. And as much as he wanted to make it work, he eventually had to get a job at a resort making $17 an hour. Around this time is when he created his YouTube channel under the name TheStradman. Back then, he would only make videos when he had the time, either reviewing cars that he owned or just filming cool cars on the street. He had always loved cars ever since he was a kid, and deep down, he just wanted to be around them all the time. After working at the resort for a while, he ended up quitting due to some problems he had with the company. However, he saw that as an opportunity to take YouTube and cars more seriously. So, without much of a plan, he ended up packing up the little things he had and moving to Los Angeles. His plan was to film the exotic cars of Beverly Hills and post them to YouTube. And when he got there, he started doing exactly that for up to 12 hours a day. There was a period during this time where he only showered once in 58 days. And on top of this, he was only making around $5 a day, and his channel was extremely small. Now obviously, just over $100 a month isn't enough to afford somewhere to live, especially in LA. So he spent this whole time living out of his tiny 2005 Audi TT. But one day, he ran into a major issue. His car broke down, and he couldn't afford to get it fixed at the dealership. Luckily, he managed to do the repair himself, but he realized he couldn't keep living like this. He needed to move back home, get a job, and find somewhere to live. Eventually, he was able to use his degree to get a job in accounting. This job paid around $60,000 per year, which is a big step up from $5 a day. At this point, he was still doing YouTube on the side, but he was still getting basically no results. So he decided to take a risk. He figured that more people would want to watch his videos if he had a more interesting car. So he used all the money he had saved up as a down payment for a $90,000 Lamborghini. While he couldn't really afford this car, it made him happier than ever. Unfortunately, this was very bad timing. In 2015, he was laid off from his job in accounting. And with a $90,000 car payment and nowhere to live, he really needed to make YouTube work. But he only had around 80,000 subscribers at the time, and he wasn't making a full-time salary from his videos. Luckily, his former boss offered him a room in his house for only a couple $100s a month while he figured out what to do next. And also, he was right about the Lamborghini. He made a video explaining how he bought a Lamborghini at 26 years old, and it blew up. 4 million views and $10,000 later, and he got a glimpse of how much he could actually make from YouTube. So with no job once again, he took this as a second chance. He started filming videos every day non-stop, and pretty quickly he was making more than he was from his accounting job. With this money, he started traveling across the world filming cars that very few people had ever seen before. And of course, he started buying more cars for himself and the channel. He knew that the more cars he had, the wider of an audience he would attract. He viewed every car as a business investment, just like the Lamborghini was at the beginning. And one of the first additions to his collection was a 2009 Audi R8, which he bought for $68,000. Not long after, James bought a white McLaren 570S, also known by his viewers as the Baby Mac. This was the first true supercar James had ever owned, and it marked a huge turning point for his channel. As he bought more cars and spent more money, his channel started growing faster and faster, and only a couple months later, TheStradman hit 1 million subscribers. At this point, he was starting to make a substantial amount of money from YouTube. But instead of buying a house, he wanted to keep the momentum going, so he decided to spend it on the craziest car yet. He went out and bought a 2012 Lamborghini Aventador, which he still owns to this day. This car cost $200,000, but he was making so much money that it didn't really matter. By the middle of 2020, he was making around $150,000 per month from YouTube through ad revenue, sponsorships, and merch, which is an unbelievable amount of money, especially for someone who was living off of just $5 a day 6 years ago. Now at this point, TheStradman had pretty much exhausted the supercar market and wanted to do what not many other YouTubers could afford to do, which is buying a hypercar. And if you don't know, hypercars usually cost around $1 million. He had a few options in mind, like a McLaren P1 or a Lexus LFA, but he eventually settled on a 2005 Bugatti Veyron. Now obviously, a Bugatti is a major financial investment, with this one costing James around $900,000. But it's a car that sets him apart from every other automotive YouTuber. And with this purchase, James had gone from living in his car to owning over $2 million worth of cars in just 7 years. But the craziness doesn't stop there. It was around this time when he finally decided it was time to start designing a house. The house, which is still being worked on to this day, will cost around $2 million. And when it's finally finished, it'll be the culmination of years spent working every day to achieve this dream. And while he definitely put in the work to get to this point, James has always attributed all of his success to his parents. Unfortunately, in May of last year, his dad passed away from a heart attack.
I'm so grateful for the time that I had with him, because I know there's so many people out there who lose their father, their mother, a close loved one so much sooner than I did. I just want to honor my dad. This is the only way I know how to do it, and I know my dad is in heaven, and I feel so fortunate because he was such a good dad. He was so supportive of me for so long.
His dad was one of, if not the most influential person throughout his entire life, so he took a break from YouTube to just reflect and spend some time with family. To honor his dad, he dedicated one of his favorite cars ever in his name, his Liberty Walk Aventador. Over the next few weeks, he started making a slow return to YouTube. Over time, he would only add more cars to his collection, like a Nissan GTR, a Ram TRX, and even a Lamborghini Countach. But recently, the main focus of the channel has shifted towards the construction of his dream house. After countless setbacks and revisions, the house is finally coming together after almost 3 years in the making. On October 3rd, he was actually able to move in most of his cars into the new house, and it was a big emotional moment seeing them all together. So, 10 years ago, TheStradman had nothing except a car, a camera, and a dream. Today, he owns 14 cars worth almost $5 million and lives in a $2 million home. His channel is closing in on 4 million subscribers, and he's one of the biggest automotive YouTubers ever.